again, and welcome to the final component of Session 2 in this 5E instructional model, Guided Exploration. At this point, we have design standards and UDL-aligned unit and assessment plans. Now that we know what we have to teach and how we know our students understand the learning goals, we need to create an inclusive lesson plan that captures how we will teach the content. Throughout this process, you have been designing and planning material based on the principles of UDL and the nature of science. Similarly, creating a 5E lesson plan requires the same emphasis on responsive instruction that provides multiple means of content representation and learning opportunities for students. The 5E instructional model is divided into 5 components, each of which is designed to promote various learning opportunities that pique the interest and background knowledge of your students and continually challenge students to extend past their current level of understanding. The 5 components of the 5E instructional model are engage, which is how the teacher will capture students' interest. Again, engagement is one of the UDL principles. It's based on the idea of knowing your students' cultural identities, knowing the background knowledge that they're coming in with, and knowing where to engage them with the type of material that they perhaps have an interest in. Explore. These are hands-on activities that represent the content. Again, back to representation, one of our UDL guidelines. We want to give students multiple ways that this content is seen in their everyday lives. So we want to give them as many different opportunities to see this content, whether that's through different forms of media, whether that's through different forms of learning opportunities. We want to give them as many opportunities to see this content in action. Explain. Questions or techniques the teacher will use to connect student explanations to the concepts at hand. The main thing here, guys, is that student explanations is the key point here. We're not looking at direct teacher instruction. We're not looking at giving students the answers. We want students to develop their own explanations. And that's done through supporting students with different types of representations again, different types of manipulatives, hands-on materials, visuals, anything that again is going to help students in developing their own understanding. Elaborate. How will students develop a sophisticated understanding of the content? How can they apply this understanding? Now, the UDL framework is based off of differentiated instruction, creating an inclusive atmosphere for learning. The elaborate piece off of the 5E lesson plan is one of the key parts where differentiation is going to be obvious. This could be different from student to student. For example, you may have students that have become proficient in the learning goal by this point, and the elaboration piece is to push them to a more complex understanding, perhaps at an application level of understanding. For some of your other students with some academic needs, such as IEPs or ELL students, this elaborate piece might be simply a remediation to get them to proficiency and get them up to par with that learning goal. So again, this might be different from student to student, but that is why we embedded some different types of accommodations and some different differentiation strategies in our assessment and unit plans. Lastly is evaluate. How will students demonstrate they have reached the learning goal, or what we are calling the SFLT in our unit plan? These have been developed already in your assessment plan. You came up with different types of assessments, whether they were formative or summative, but in either case, they were meant to provide you evidence that your students have reached that particular learning target that you came up with in your unit plan. Okay, so it's important to note that although the 5E lesson plan appears as a concrete list of instructional steps, in reality it's a flexible process that can be modified to fit the pace and instructional needs of your classroom. The engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate sequence is perfectly acceptable as it is. But the steps can be conducted out of order depending on which instructional sequence the teacher views as beneficial to their students. Be sure to look back at the resources on nature of science and the UDL guidelines and download the 5E lesson plan exemplar to help you design your own 5E instructional sequence. Thank you.